Okay, the live stream's up and running.
Okay, thank you. Okay, being 6:30, I'll call the facilities meeting to order. Roll call. I believe everybody's present. Plus, we have some guests. So the next item number 3, the approval of minutes. You were mailed out the minutes from the last meeting. Are there any additions, corrections, or what are your wishes on the minutes?
I'll move for approval.
A motion's been moved to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Okay. Next thing, item number 4, public comment. We did have one public comment. I believe you were all mailed that. I also had received some phone calls, and I think we all got a letter from Cheryl Miller as far as from the Healthy Environment Action Team, talking about as far as our carbon-free stuff. And so, and I'd also had a phone call from the Sue who had talked last time, and also from Jan Erdman and Jim Erdman, as far as all, and that was all had to do with the carbon free by 2020. That's what I have for public comment. Does anybody have any other or notification of any other public comments?
We didn't receive any other public comments.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on to item number 5, the new government center sign. So we're all sent out. Scott, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, I can do that. Last meeting, it was brought up to bring to give you guys versions of the sign that had government center in yellow and in white. I sent those out. Got feedback that the white was better than the yellow. It was a preferred. And then Paul Miller and I discussed the font of the sign. So I had the sign company do 4 different fonts, and the feedback on that that Paul and I had was that F3 was the best font. If you remember, the original one had like the ends of the letters were rounded, and these are squared off on F3, so they'd be more visible. The others, there were other reasons why we didn't like the other 3. So I guess I brought this to the committee meeting just to bring it to your attention. And you get your thoughts on it, and we can look at going forward with finishing up this sign situation.
Does everybody have that, or I can try and share my screen?
That would be good if we could share the screen
Okay.
of what we're looking at.
Here we go. Did that work?
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Yay me.
So if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, please.
we are looking for, obviously, the committee's feedback on it, on these 4 kind of finalists. But again, we want to think about how these will read at speed. So we've got people traveling 55 miles an hour or greater along that stretch of Stout Road. And this is the sign that they'll see. Scott and I kind of preferred F3. My second was F2, just a personal one. F2 is a little bit bolder type and maybe a little bit more visible, since F3 is a little thinner. I kind of like the aesthetics of F3, but that's a subjective opinion. I felt that F4, with the extensions on the letters actually gets a little bit lost when I consider reading it at speed. And F1 seemed a little too compact. So in my mind, it came down to F2 or F3. It may have been simply a preference in terms of, like I say, just pure aesthetics that I preferred F3. But again, you want to look at what people will be seeing as they drive, as opposed to what we're seeing necessarily at the screen. Try to put yourself in that position in a car driving by the sign.
Well, what are the committee's, what's your opinions?
Chairman, this is Tim Niehoff.
Yeah, Tim.
I have a tendency to agree with you, looking them all over. It's just the spacing and the size of the font on F3 just seems to me that it would be more clear as people drive by. So I am in agreement with F3.
This is Don. I guess I'm leaning towards F2 just because it's heavier and I think it might be easier to see. But F3 would be okay too, but F2 would be my first.
Okay, Mike, what do you think?
Well, I might as well say I like F4 the best myself. I find all of them to be relatively decent. I wouldn't oppose any of them, but my personal likes would be F4. It's a little more friendly looking and softer than the blocky look of the 2 and 3. I guess 2 would be my choice over 3, but I'm not sure why. Maybe because it's bolder and sticks out a little more, but honestly, I could support any of the 4.
Okay. Ron, what do you think?
F3. I like that one.
Okay. And I too like F3. So if it's okay with the committee, then we'll, I think it's based on comments, F3 is probably what we will move forward with. So now, I guess I have a procedural question here. This will have to go all the way up to the county level or not?
I don't believe so. Nick can correct me, but I think it's enough for the facilities committee to have endorsed this. We will inform executive. We could even attach it as just an FYI to the county board, but I do not believe it takes county board action. Nick, what do you think?
I agree.
Okay. Do we actually need a formal motion then, or?
I think it would be very nice if you memorialized it with a motion.
Sure. Okay. Do I hear a motion to move forward F3 as our new logo for Dunn County?
It's specifically as the new sign for the government center.
Okay. New sign for the government center.
Chairman, I so move.
A motion has been made. Do I hear a second?
Okay.
Okay. Ron seconded. Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed, the same sign. Okay, F3 it is. Okay, thank you. Item 6, staff and recreation reports, fair and fair board. Deb, do you have anything to add other than what you had sent out in your letter?
Not really. I just was going to see if anybody had any questions. We are moving forward with, trying to work on a safe fair this summer. Looking at different plans that other fairs are using and so forth to do that. And we are scheduling kind of a work session where we're going to do some brainstorming on how we can accomplish that. We'll be having that soon. So if anybody doesn't have any questions, I don't really have anything other than what's in the written information.
Okay. I guess I have one question. You made reference about how the southern states are having fairs, and
Yes.
are they running into any? Well, I guess are they doing anything really, really different other than social distancing and stuff, or what kind of input are you getting from that?
So far, so good. There haven't been any cases attributed to or any outbreaks contributed to that. Most of the southern fairs that are up and running are in Florida. They're doing the normal, suggesting masks, social distancing, cleaning, and that. And people are anxious to get back. The CEO of the IAFE actually flew to Florida to visit the fair to see how they were handling it, just as a firsthand experience. And she was really impressed with, they were just controlling how many people were in a building and so forth. So,
Okay.
So far, so good. There's a couple southern fairs. I believe there's one in Arizona that postponed their fair till the fall, just because it was scheduled to be the end of March, and they just felt that they couldn't hold it right now. So theirs is postponed till fall. But most fairs are planning on moving ahead.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Does anybody else have any other questions for Deb? If not, we'll move on to Facilities and Parks Division. As far as operations, Scott, is that you?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Any questions on the report that you received? Or I also included the Facilities and Parks 5-year capital budget plan that I submitted just as a informational for you guys to take a look at for upcoming budget process.
So on your, I guess I have a question on the 5-year plan here.
Sure.
For 2022, the HVAC building management system, is that going to be a true or a total revision of it, or what's? I mean, I know those systems cost a lot of money, but 300,000 is a lot of money too. So is that like a whole new upgrade throughout the whole building, or?
That would be an upgrade through the Judicial Center. Our other buildings, the Government Center building and Neighbors building, are on Johnson controls. They are on a Medisys program where we can access that on a laptop. The Judicial Center is on Tracer Summit. It's an older, outdated system. The controls are old. You can access it by computer. It's much harder to access by computer. It's definitely obsolete. It's the same, so it's very similar or same setup that the old Government Center was on. The old Government Center went through the Tracer Summit system. So very similar stuff, old, outdated. We went through that with that building as far as what it would cost to update it.
Okay, so then obviously you'd go out for bids, etc.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay.
I do have a question, Chairman.
Yes, please.
The questions that I have, obviously, we need to keep in mind about the carbon-free. How much more efficient are these new devices compared to what we currently have?
As far as the controls for the HVAC system, the controls would probably be, I would say they'd be more efficient. They probably react a lot better than what the ones that are there now. More electronics, updated better, have better control over areas as far as temperature wise. We have a lot of areas in the Judicial Center that may end up being colder or warmer depending on what's going on with the system. Upgraded controls should give us a better control over that.
But we don't know what the rating is for the overall system as far as energy efficiency.
I do not. So the building management system would not change out the actual heating or cooling system itself. It would be controlling it. So that would be,
okay,
telling the system, when to heat, when to cool.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
But I would hope that with a newer system, that would have a tighter tolerance as everything gets better. So in essence, we would be achieving more energy efficiency through doing this.
There would be better control over the system.
Overall, yeah. Okay. Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions as far as for the 5-year capital budget plan or the letter that Scott sent out as far as for on operations?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I've got a question on the bike path. It seems to me if we did the bike path and the road at the same time, there may be some savings. Maybe not. I'm just asking, but it seems like they'd be pretty close to the same place and doing the same type of work. Maybe we could consider trying to do them at the same time.
Oh, sure. Okay.
We would eliminate redundancy of going back and stripping, restoring, getting grass to grow. So I agree with Dave. We would save money if we did them both at the same time. Definitely.
Okay. Any other questions or discussions on the operations? Yes, go ahead, Don.
Is this bike path the one that we were talking about that's going to go kind of in back of the buildings and end up in the rear of the judicial center? Is that the one we're talking about?
That's
Yes,
correct.
that would be the one.
Okay, any other questions, comments? If not, we'll move on to projects. Any comments on that, Scott, other than what you've written?
Actually, the project of the Corporation Council doors addition, that is going well. Actually, the texture was sprayed today, so it's that far along. Next will be the painting of the door frames themselves, painting of the walls, and then we'll be able to install glass and install the doors, and Nick's doors will all be installed and look like they were there during the construction project.
Okay, great.
I have some very talented guys on staff now that are able to do this work. That it's a huge savings. During the construction situation, we talked about doors for $3,500 a door. That would be considered with the contractor installing. So there was a lot more money there. Nick was able to get the 2 doors for less than the price of that $3,500. The guys installed them, minimal, supplies for putting them in. We had some stuff, drywall and stuff on hand already. Put that into there. Minimal mud work, and then the texture paint we already have from the construction project. I believe we even have glass for the side light left over from the construction project. So overall, it's been a huge savings.
Great. Good to hear. Okay. Next item, number 3, facilities fleet.
Not a lot of changes with the minimal use yet on the central fleet. We're looking forward to receiving the Malibus probably the end of April, beginning of May. So not a lot of updates there. Not a lot of issues with the vehicles just because the minimal use here due to COVID yet. But I'm assuming as things start picking back up that the usage will pick up now throughout the rest of the year.
Okay. Next one, facilities monthly financial report.
The financial report was sent out to everybody. Looks a little bit funky because I don't think the budget was actually loaded into the first part. So it looks like we're kind of backwards and in the hole, but essentially the money is there. The numbers just have to be plugged in, and then parentheses will go away.
Okay, you're sure on that?
I'm
'Cause
hoping so.
I looked at it and I thought, oh man, what's he telling us here? But okay, we'll trust you. We'll trust you.
Okay.
Okay. Energy.
I'm going to start the process to go work with the DOT to get the grant process and move ahead on the solar system for transit. We'll utilize that grant, and we'll start the process with the DOT, figure out what we all need paperwork wise. We'll get an RFP rolling, and followed by an RFB once we have a game plan together on our specs on what we need. Then we'll put it out for bid, and hopefully by the end of the year, transit is online. If not all green, mostly green, utilizing this DOT grant.
Okay, great. Anything under miscellaneous?
Not this month,
Mr.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah,
Mr.
question,
Chairman?
Don. Yes.
On energy, did you, it looks like the Public Service Commission is looking again at this business of not allowing private investors to invest in solar panels specifically for government agencies. So there may be some hope there that we can still go back to that stuff.
Yes, and the great part of it is this grant should get the transit system all up and running. We shouldn't need any help. It'll be mostly grant money, a little bit of local share to put us online on there. But yes, Don, if this pulls through, then we can hit the next step. And on these buildings that have the bigger energy requirements, that hopefully will fall into place to where we can utilize other funding sources to get the more expensive projects up and running.
Okay, great. Any other questions as far as for anything under facilities or parks that we've talked about by anybody? If not, we'll go on to C, Corporate Council Staff Report. There is none. Item D, the Accessibility Wisconsin Tracked Wheelchair Agreement Update. Mr. Colson.
You'd think I would learn how to work this thing by now, but guess not. Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for putting me on the agenda. I did at the last time I was with you folks, I asked for permission to, once I got everything in place, to go ahead and submit the application. I'm not ready to submit the application yet to AAW, and that's Accessibility Wisconsin, and they're the people that will provide the all-terrain wheelchair and the trailer to store it in. But I'm still working with Rotary. I met with Rotary on February 4, went to their meeting, went over the memo of understanding with them. I've had several discussions with them since then. One is as recent as Monday. They're on board with this. We just need to kind of get all of the language together and then submit that to AAW. So hopefully at the next meeting, your guys' next meeting, that I will either have sent the application or will be sending the application in very soon. So we're very close to having that finalized. And just to remind the committee, what some of the things in that agreement that the county is on the hook for, provide a secure area to store the equipment. And it's going to be, it'll and a place to plug it in. So we're going to provide the electricity and a place to store it. And then we need to provide, Rotary with access, to be able to get that stuff. And so we'll have to talk. I'll talk with John maybe a little bit later and just start figuring out, where we want to keep it. And maybe in a parking lot next to a light standard with a plug-in might work, because then it would be out visible so everyone could see it. There will be, it's a covered trailer, and the wheelchair is inside of it. And we would be allowed to put our logo on it. Rotary would be allowed to put its logo on it. AAW will have its logo on it with some language, that you can rent this for, not rent this, but check this out for free. So we need to find a place to keep it, place to plug it in. We will work with on some training with Rotary and AAW. Probably over the course of the life of us using this thing, a place to clean it up on occasion. So maybe a place where we could have a hose and a sprayer that when they come back, that we could just hose it down and clean it up before it goes back. That's about the extent of what the county is on the hook for. Rotary and the county would probably partner on most everything else, with the county really being almost a silent partner in almost all the other operations, checking it out, making sure it's in equipment, that it's in fine shape. AAW will maintain any kind of real maintenance issues. There would be a point of contact from Rotary and a point of contact at the county, which is probably going to be my office from the county. And Rotary would then just coordinate through the county for any kind of issues with the machine or the trailer. We would then correspond with AAW, and then they would take care of those maintenance things. Certainly, there's a requirement that and Rotary would do this for some fundraising throughout the year. And certainly AEW would take any kind of help in terms of offsetting those costs, but it's not expected from AEW for maintenance. And so that's kind of the where we're at right now. Questions about the program or about where we're headed?
I don't have any questions at this time. Does anybody else have any questions for Bob? Other than maybe. Go ahead.
If we did have this program, who would be broadcasting this? Would we be doing that, or would that be the Rotary Club? Or
yeah, good question. So it would be a combination. You mean advertising for it?
yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, so that would be a combination between, in the memo of understanding, we would on our website we would provide links to AAW, and so there would be something on our website that shows that there's this tracked wheelchair available with links to AAW and also links to Rotary, and then Rotary would do the same. And so between the three of us, on our social medias, it would be there. It's also, there would be a requirement, that on a regular basis, whatever is deemed regular, that some sort of article would come out in the paper, or that there's some sort of public awareness, and that's something that the county and Rotary would collaborate on. But Rotary would really be the lead on that. They're better suited for those types of events and stuff. So it's a collaborative effort, but a lot of it's going to be through social media is how people most likely would find out about it. But also I'm sure we'll have some newspaper stuff, some splash newspaper. There will be hopefully we could get the TV people down when we first get it, and maybe some radio coverage. But generally it's going to be through social media.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Dunn.
Maybe I missed this, but say this vehicle gets stuck out someplace or breaks down someplace. Do we go and get it, or would the Rotary go and get it?
Well, I'm guessing that Rotary would whenever they can. They're going to be in charge of checking it out, and in some cases delivering it to where the people want it if they can't deliver it. And so we'll work through that. But generally, it's going to be Rotary's responsibility. On the odd time where they can't and we can, we may step in, but it's really not going to be our responsibility. But we certainly wouldn't say, sorry, not my table, if we can't help.
Okay. Do you have a targeted date to actually get this? I mean, I know you can't guarantee anything, but do you have a date in mind where you think this might be?
I'm hoping, that by June, I don't know how long it is on the AEW side, and speaking with them, they're really excited about the partnership between the county and Rotary. They had just received a grant, and so they were buying new machines. They've actually called me twice wondering when we're going to submit our application. So I don't think it takes too long on their end. It's more just making sure that on our end and on Rotary's end that everyone is comfortable with the arrangement and the responsibilities. So again, I hope to have it either down or on its way down by this time next month, and depending on how long it takes on AAW side to get it turned around and to get one delivered, so, but I don't, I would think that late spring, early summer is certainly reasonable.
Okay, good. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Colson? If not, thanks for the update, Bob.
You're welcome.
Okay. Number 7, considerations for actions to be taken by the committee. 7A, Dunn County Directional Plan Recommendation. Now, I put this on here because there's been some discussion lately about the directional plan, the process that the county developed here a couple of years ago. And as far as, is it working, or are we actually utilizing it to the best of our abilities and all that stuff? And I'm thinking that if we start moving forward on the carbon-free initiative, that would actually work right into the directional plan, because I see it, and hopefully you all have the pyramid, the directional plan. Does everybody, you probably don't have it in front of you, but I do.
Mr. Chair, if John doesn't have a copy, electronic copy, I could share my screen, and then someone can just direct me up or down, and I could scroll through.
Oh,
it.
That'd be great. Yes.
John, do you have yours, or should I just put mine on the screen?
Mine is in a folder. I can bring it up, but if you got yours ready to go ahead.
Mine's ready to go, so I'll just share that. So. All right. Do you guys see it? Is it on the screen now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So let me just kind of reduce it a little bit so that we can keep it on the screen. Go ahead and I'll just kind of listen and navigate according to maybe as the conversation goes.
Yeah. Because as I look at this and study this, and I was, on the board when it was developed, so I was, in the meetings and saw how this all came about. I mean, I think that would fall perfectly under initiative number 1, which would be the environmental policy. And then it would also work its way up to, it would be a quality of life change for everybody. We would have the board engagement, we'd have public engagement, and certainly sustainability, which is all part of it, which makes all for very proactive government. So I guess I put that on here I want you guys' input to see if that makes sense to you, because that's how I see utilizing a directional plan to help this process move forward. And I guess I would ask Mr. Miller if you would have any comments on that.
Thank you. Actually, I wanted to let you know that all of the standing committees are looking at the directional plan this month and the first part of next month, with an eye toward evaluating which of the initiatives that are contained in their plan fall under their purview. For instance, if you take a look at that list Bob is scrolling down to now, one of them that clearly falls under the purview of Facilities Committee is the Rec Park Plan. And at the question, how do we develop a Dunn County Rec Park plan that serves the needs of the various current and future users? Now, we've been working off and on a Rec Park plan, but clearly we're not ready to say, here it is, it's done. But it is within the purview of this committee to say, let's refocus our efforts, maybe pick a time by which we would like to at least have a complete draft completed, working with Bob and me, so that we have something that we could show some progress. That Rec Park Plan initiative, by the way, is a little bit different than some of the others, which talk about developing policies, and then the programs. It implies the programs and the services that would implement those policies. Maybe the rec park itself is sufficient to warrant a policy on its own. What is our disposition toward the rec park long-term? Is it something that's going to remain in the county holding for the foreseeable future, for the next 25, say, years or 50 years? We ought to have some conversation about that, about the future of the rec park as part of the rec park plan, and be prepared, this committee, be prepared to articulate that. And I would recommend that it is something that maybe we can put together in time for facilities committee in March. It'll be late, but in March, where you could actually potentially forward something to the executive committee and ultimately to the full county board with respect to this portion of the directional plan. A recommendation, yes, to the rec park for foreseeable future, and a commitment to, flesh out the rec park plan. That's one approach you could take. I also appreciate what you said, Chairman Maves, about the health policy, because there's nothing that restricts this committee or any other just to the initiatives that are already, that are clearly under their purview. You can weigh in on any of them. The carbon one has to do with the health policy, certainly the zero carbon footprint. It also has environmental consequences as well, broadly environmental consequences. So there's other things. And then finally, there's also the charge for each of us to consider, are there other initiatives that are not in the plan right now that really deserve time and attention? Are there things that should be added? Or are there things that are in the directional plan right now which should be dropped out? So this one becomes a matter of homework for members of the facilities committee. Staff can certainly, if so directed, try to articulate a policy, write up a policy that can be presented to you in March, along with a plan, at least in the broad strokes, of how long it might take to flesh out and develop a rec park plan. And it also, gives you the month as individual supervisors on the facilities committee an opportunity to think about other elements, other initiatives, ones that are in the plan now or ones that ought to be. So sorry for the long-winded, but I did want you to understand each of the standing committees is doing this and is taking the same approach.
Okay, thank you. So
Chair,
now,
if I
yes.
could, one comment from me. You mentioned, the work you're doing, with solar and some of the energy upgrades to the facilities, and that, well, that might fit under the environmental policy. And I actually, Paul and I met with PR&D yesterday, and I'm charged with developing, the environmental policy for PR&D. And as I was thinking about it today, I was thinking that I'm going to be asking PR&D, should we be looking a little bit broader in terms of environmental policy rather than maybe only on the programs that they're dealing with, so that we could then take into account, things like our carbon footprint and those things. And that would allow this committee to tie on to that. And I don't know that each committee has to have its own environmental policy, but if we have a county environmental policy that crosses over multiple committees, I think that would be just tremendous in terms of it. And so I was pleased to hear you bring up in terms of a broader view of environmental policy than maybe what we had talked about at committee yesterday. But it's something that I was going to bring to the committee to see if they're interested. And I think it makes more sense having heard the discussion here tonight.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Anybody else have any input at this point, or any questions? Hearing none, seeing none. Okay. And Mr. Miller, what he had to say as far as like for the rec park plan, there'll be a lot of homework for us to actually, for all the committee members to sit down and get our heads together and come up with a plan. So that will be an assignment for our next meeting for everybody to, think about it. And if you have any questions, obviously send me an email, give me a call. Let me know what your thoughts are, because it's a big project. It isn't just a simple, well, let's do this, let's do that. I mean, because like Mr. Miller said, we're looking down the road 25, 50 years, so whatever works out best for Dunn County. So,
And just to repeat, what we'll do for you at the staff level for your March meeting, Bob and I will take a stab at a policy, writing an actual policy with respect to the rec park. And it'll assume things that you may reject, but it'll assume, for instance, that yes, we're going to keep the rec park where it is. But we'll take a stab at it so that you have something to react to while you're also thinking yourselves about the future of the rec park and the county's role of what it serves and how it works. We could also take a stab again at a broad outline of what it might take to produce a plan for that rec park. Bob and I will put our heads together and see what we can come up with for you to react to, even if it's rejection at your March meeting.
Great. I mean, we got to start someplace, and so
Right.
that'd be great. Yes, Mr. Rogers, Mike.
So prior to Bob and Mr. Miller putting a lot of time in this, is this something that the committee would maybe want to give them a little bit of direction ahead of time? Maybe, we keep the original park and we don't build new, which is kind of the common sense, but versus putting a lot of time and energy into it ahead of time? Just a question.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mike, that's a great question, and I think that I can't remember who all was on the committee, but we started this study on the rec park, and we got as far as understanding that it wasn't financially feasible to move the rec park, and I think there may have even been a decision that it was going to stay where it's at, and that we were going to work on developing, the plan of what it would take to keep the rec park and grow the rec park, specifically, the fair at the rec park in there. So we still have a lot of that information. And so if committee chairman, is that as far as we got? Do you remember, did you get as far as deciding it was going to stay?
Yes, because it was based on the projections of the cost to go out and buy and to build, etc. It was stay there and make the best moves we can to utilize the space available that's there. Yeah. You are right.
So I think, to answer Mike's question, I think unless you want to go back and revisit that, I think that work has been done to understand what it would take to move it and to keep it there. The next step that we were going to take, and I think this is where Paul is leading to, is that if we develop a policy that says the rec park is going to stay here for the next X number of years, and an outline of a basic plan of spatial and needs plan, just so that you can move ahead, and that at some point put dollars to those pieces. I think that's what I understood Paul was saying, and that's what I understand in terms of where we are at moving ahead. And if I'm off base, just let me know.
No, I think you're spot on. Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
And I guess I wasn't part of the board at the time you made that decision. So I guess now I understand a little better. I appreciate the insight.
And I can provide you some of that information if you like, Mike, if you want some information about what, how they came about that. I'll put together a little packet for you.
I would like that
Thank
too,
you.
Bob.
Why don't I just put it together for the entire committee then? Then everyone has it. So
yeah,
Sounds
good.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I do have a more broad question, and that is, does the Dunn County Rec Park, is it more of an asset or is it more of a liability?
It depends on who you talk to.
and the time of year.
Yeah.
And whether or not the bills have been paid.
It is a very fair question, and it's a very real question. And I don't, here again, it's not one of those things that's just a yes or no answer. It's, black and white. There's so much gray area that it all depends on your vision, what you see for it in the future for Dunn County. And so like I say, it all depends on who you ask.
Hopefully that question will be easier to answer, from the policy statement and the plan, that if you want to go that direction. I mean, that would be I think you'd be able to answer that question and then either move ahead or say, no, we don't like it, and move on. I think that's kind of, the fact that we said it's going to stay in its location, it didn't mean that it's always going to be a rec park. We are not going to move it from there. But I think to answer your question, as part of this study would be, is it a liability? Is it an asset? And that's kind of a decision from this committee to the board. And I think that's relevant in terms of maybe what we're trying to do with this plan.
I agree. I think what you provide to us, Bob, is going to help us out make those determinations also.
Great.
Okay, any other questions for anybody on that one? Okay, if not, then we'll move down to 7B, the creation of the resolution of a carbon free by the year of 2050. Okay, so everybody was sent out. Don was nice enough to actually put together a resolution, but I would like to, as I was reading through the resolutions that we had presented before us over again from the last meeting, and then I talked to Kate Beaton, who was on that last meeting, and talked about it and stuff. There's, I don't want to just rush forward and create a resolution. I want to make sure we think through this and we actually have a good system of how we're going to check to make sure that it's one thing to have a resolution, but then you got to have checks and balances to make sure that what are the metrics? Are you obtaining your goals? How are you going to obtain your goals? So I want to make sure we do a thorough job. I'm all in supportive of it, but I just want to make sure we don't just rush into it and say, okay, now we have this, now what? I want to make sure it's a work in progress, and it'll always be a work in progress as you keep evaluating and upgrading. And I think a lot of the stuff we're doing already, even the discussion on the controls as far as for the HVAC thing is going to help. And the fact that we are buying more energy efficient vehicles, I do, in the back of my mind, I keep asking myself, how is the county going to be totally carbon free when you look at the law enforcement agency, as far as, is it realistic that you're going to have all electric cars? I think it's going to be a gradual mix. We got to have a goal. We have to work towards it. I'm all supportive of that. I really like the idea that we're going to the electric bus and transit. And here again, I know transit already is looking at their routes, try to utilize it the best, so get the best bang out of their buck for their buses and stuff that they're going. So we are actually moving towards that direction already. But I just want to make sure that we have the metrics determined before how are we going to judge it. Where's our baseline? How are we going to establish our baseline? This is where we're at today. This is where we want to be. And how are we going to do all that? So I guess, and I thank Don for putting this together, because he obviously he spent a lot of time and effort, and thank you, Don, for doing that. But I guess I would like to, I'm asking for the committee's inputs on how they envision this process, because maybe I'm overthinking it too much. I don't know. It's something that I really want to work. I think it's important. I want to make sure that the whole Dunn County Board of Supervisors is behind it. I don't want to just rush this through and say, here, read this, and what do you think? In essence, I guess it's kind of a case where we're going to put together the nuts and the bolts, but I want to make them aware of what's coming down the pike towards them, let them, so I don't know. I'm opening it up to, for discussion because, like I say, maybe I'm overthinking this too much. What do you guys think? Yeah, Don, go ahead.
Well, one of the reasons I put this together is I started out because you requested a few suggestions, and I got carried away and I just kept writing. But I think my purpose was that this would be something that there's something on paper that we can discuss. Because it's kind of hard to discuss something if you don't have anything to start with. That was my theory in back of it.
Okay.
And then just a couple other thoughts. To me, the first whereas is probably the most important one because climate change does propose a serious threat to current and future generations. And those future generations, the way I look at it, are our children and grandchildren. So it gets kind of personal. And if we don't do anything to mitigate this, they're going to be in a terrible mess in a few years. And I look at us as elected leaders in the county, and we need to lead. Because I doubt if much is going to come out of the legislature in Madison. And our national Congress is so divided that dramatic action coming out of them is going to be rare too. So I think it's kind of up to us. And that's where I wrote this. And if you look down at number 7, whereas I did add the directional plan because this would fit right into the directional plan as we discussed earlier. But mainly this was to get the discussion started. That was my main theme here.
Okay, great. Anybody else have a comment? Yeah, Mike. You're muted, Mike. There you go.
Thank you. So I spoke at the last meeting as well, supporting the whole topic. Certainly support the renewable energy and all that comes with it. And I hope as we become more efficient and productive with our renewable energy, we continue to replace the fossil fuels. I guess one thing that came to my attention, I guess, as we see the crisis in Texas with everyone being out of power, that I hate to jump before we really know what we're jumping into. Dive off a diving board and find out there's no water in the pool. We got to be able to sustain when we have a blizzard or a snowstorm and our solar panels are covered with snow for 2 weeks. If we don't have any wind or whatever the case may be. So I support what Don's doing here completely, and I'm not questioning that. I'm just wanting to be a little cautious moving forward that are we going to have enough batteries to store all of our power for 2 weeks? And then what happens when we got to replace these batteries in the landfill or wherever they go? So I encourage us to be comprehensive in what we do and not just kind of get it done so we can say we have a carbon-free plan. We need a comprehensive plan.
Okay, thank you. Yep. Yeah, Ron, go ahead.
If there was one positive thing there when I was writing, thank you, Don, for putting that together. And, like they say that the vegetation and trees kind of take carbon away to help the planet. I was thinking maybe we should plant more trees, have even on our government lands and stuff. And, in 30 years, some trees be pretty big. And that's something I was thinking about. That's about it.
Well, that's a great thought because that would be one of the action items as to how are we going to do this. That's a great idea because that shows initiative. I think that's great. I even wrote it down. That was good. That was good. Any other comments by anybody?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I mean, I think about this. Thank you, Don, for putting this together. It's pretty darn good at this point in time. There are some changes that I'd like to see in it, but we can discuss that as we get on. But my mind, my head is, and I hope I'm not overstepping my bounds by jumping in here like this, but my head's going about 1,000 miles an hour into many different directions at this point in time. And I think from a facilities committee standpoint, we have a lot of things that we can put out there to start working towards that are actually doable things. I mean, I start thinking about upgrading all the lighting in our facilities to LED lights to reduce our energy usage. I think about, what about our fleet? Do we start looking at alternate fleet vehicles that don't necessarily use gas and oil? I mean, just a couple of the steps, but all those things are starting to muddle in my mind, but we need to start getting some of these things down to say, okay, these are the steps that we can do, and they are measurable, and we can, upgrading insulation in the buildings, upgrading our heating and cooling, so that we're using less energy, because and as I think about this, we're a net energy user. We're not a net energy resource developer. We don't deliver energy. There's things we can do. We can put solar panels up. We can put wind turbines up. But I think the biggest bang for the buck for us from a facility standpoint is to start looking at all of our facilities, get a list of what they have, from heating and cooling to lighting. What are the things we can do quickly? What are the things that are going to take a while? We might need to do it building by building, even as we're looking at the rec park, with the Finetti Center, with the other buildings that we have there. What can we do to make them better users of energy, so that we help our energy providers, because they have, I know Xcel Energy already has an initiative to be carbon free by 2050. So by being a user and buyer of electricity from Xcel Energy, now we're moving in that step too, but we can help the utility companies by doing these other things. So I'm just kind of throwing some ideas out there. So I'll step up my soapbox now.
No, that's great. And it's a great soapbox, because that's exactly the type of things that we would have in our action plan. You would get our baseline started, because as I visualize this, we're going to have this policy, and we're going to say this, and then that's all part of how we're going to get there. The LED lights, the fleet, the buyer of Xcel, plant more trees. Yeah, I mean, these are all great ideas, and this is all part of what we need to put together to be able to call what our policy is going to be. Because then this is exactly what I was talking about. Thank you, because this is what we're going to need to do. So I guess as another homework assignment, I'm starting to feel like a teacher here, all this homework assignment stuff, but put together a list of things like that because great minds, different minds think different ways. Put together a list of action plans that, okay, we're gonna develop this policy. I think we're in agreement that it's worthwhile. It's something we need to do. We need to move forward. Write down your ideas, put them together. So then when we can get them all put together and say, this is going to be what our statement is. This is the action plans we're going to use. This is how we're going to measure our success or failures. And I shouldn't even use the word failures, our successes and non-successes, because it isn't a failure unless you stop trying, and I don't plan on stop trying. So, I mean, it's great. This is exactly what I wanted, is to have this type of conversation. Yes, Mr. Miller.
Suggestion following from what you just said, Chairman Mays. Staff can also put its head together. John Swirsky, Scott Nobbyfeld, Bob Colson, myself, and come up with our list of steps, items that we could do, large and small, to achieve a carbon neutral footprint by the deadline of 2050. And I would suggest that supervisors, committee members who do the homework you've just assigned, send an email with their ideas and staff can collate them, pull them together and have it all in one place again for your March meeting. This is the initial list of what we've come up with as potential action items to pull off that carbon neutral stance.
Okay, that's a great idea. I hate to burden the staff with so much stuff.
Oh
I
no,
know.
that's what we're here for. That's our job.
Oh, is that what it is? Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go, committee. You know, just bury staff with ideas. So no, thank you for the offer, Mr. Miller. But that is probably the most logical way to go about doing it. So yeah, everybody send your emails, your ideas, and
if I may suggest,
yeah.
I'm going to nominate Scott Nobbyfeld to be the one. If you have ideas, suggestions, send them to Scott, and he'll be able to collate them along with the ideas from John and myself. The ideas that Scott has, because he has a lot of great ideas as well on this. It's probably in the best position of any of us to know what we have done and what more we can do. So please send it to Scott.
Okay, that's what we'll do. Sounds good. Thank you. And if nothing else, it's been a learning curve for me. I did not realize there were all these little subcommittees out there like this heat and all these other groups that are already talking about things like this. So it's a learning curve. It's a good thing. So okay, moving on here. Where's my list? Is there any other discussion? Yes, Don.
One more comment. The city of Menominee is closing in on their plan. I happen to be on that committee and we're meeting tomorrow. And this thing is about 60 pages long and they've done a really good job. So I think we might be able to piggyback on that a little bit too. And maybe we can work together with the city in some fashion. One thing you might be, pardon me?
I was saying I wholeheartedly agree. The art of government is plagiarism.
Yeah, well, this thing I wrote up, as you know, I just pulled that from other groups. No sense inviting the wheel again. I did find out something interesting, the debacle in Texas, right away they blamed the wind turbines for it. Well, I checked with Bob Schultz and see what problems we had with the wind turbines. And they do shut them down when it gets too cold, but at minus 22 degrees is when they shut them down. And that doesn't get that cold very often. And if you're not like Texas, who wanted to run their own program and didn't want to connect with the rest of the nation, you can get around those things because it isn't 22 degrees minus all over the country all the time. So I think some of those problems are pretty easy to work out, but Texas just kind of likes to do their own thing, I guess, and it didn't work out this time.
Okay, any other comments or discussions on that? If not, we'll move on to the next one here, 7C, 2020 facilities budget carry forward. You were sent out 2 different letters from Mr. Swirsky. John, do you want to talk about them? John?
I can, yes. I'm just pulling them up here on my screen. There was two of them here that we had. One was for the CSB and one was for the neighbors of Dunn County frontage road.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is the request for the CSB building project. The overall project cost to do the remodel was $3.926 million. I'm requesting a balance of $58,943.44 to move forward to 2021. And we're technically going to earmark that, I believe, for the south parking lot project. So that'll get transferred over to there now that the remodel on the upstairs is done and the north parking lot is complete.
Okay, so is this, in another way of saying it, is that we came in 58,000 under budget?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. Okay,
So second one would be the carry forward request for the neighbors of Dunn County, the frontage road project there in front of Prevea. Overall project cost was $822,647.86. County's portion of that was $527,926 is what we had budgeted. City's share is $295,032.88. The county portion to date is $527,614.98. So I'm requesting to carry the balance forward of $311.02. So I'm going to go on the Price is Right after that one.
okay. So, yeah, I guess it makes sense to me. Does the committee have any questions? Are we in consensus to move it forward? It all makes sense.
Yeah, move it forward.
Okay.
I'd say
I'll
good work.
second it.
Okay, would we actually need a motion on this? I don't think we would we?
Yes, you should, there should be a motion to forward it to the executive committee to
Oh,
authorize the
okay.
carry forward.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to carry it, both dollar values forward?
I'll move.
The motion's been made by Don. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mike seconds. Any more? Motion's been made and seconded. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion's carried. Okay. Okay, the next one, item number 8, consideration of reports, resolutions, and ordinances to be recommended to the Dunn County Board by the Facilities Committee. The resolution for the 2021 Red Cedar Racing Association season. So we were all sent out information on this. We had a meeting between Red Cedar Racing and Dunn County and KT. And I would like to thank KT and the Red Cedar Racing Association. They did a lot of work, it was a good meeting, and it's the way I think it should be, as far as working together to hopefully, well, we got a plan here that we're going to be able to allow things to start opening up, but also still keeping public safety under control. So I think it's great. I'm going to ask KT to speak now because she sent out an email here just before the meeting started that I believe she's going to put on her screen to help explain, because today her and the Red Cedar Racing had a meeting this morning. It is my understanding. So at this time, I'll turn it over to KT and she can explain. KT?
Thank you. Krista, am I able to share my screen?
Yes, you are.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So what you're looking at is a copy of what I sent out just before the meeting, and it's reflective of the conversation Mark and I had a couple hours ago today. The couple boxes, I wanted to clarify that the first set of boxes with a table about proposed after clarification was really what the Racing Association had requested to start. And I had made a misunderstanding about cases per day versus cases per week. And so I added those numbers out, and then I added some little red arrows to give some context to what the Racing Association had put forward as their proposal for, so being reflective of case activity. And just wanted to point out that when we're looking at these case rates for Dunn County, or maybe just to start back, so the Racing Association had put forward cases per day per 10,000. And many of us really understand more about how many cases does that mean here in Dunn County. And so I just kind of went through the math to break that down. And then for guidance, just to think about what our Our largest 7-day average was 79 cases a day for 7 days. That was a bad week. And then it came down fairly quickly, but we were still fairly high even into December and January. We had a couple of outbreaks that have kept us at high versus coming down like some of our adjacent counties into the moderately high or moderate state burden numbers. So after the Racing Association put that forward, we had, like Supervisor Maves had shared, we had a good conversation about my recommendations. And so this is that second table or grid. And then today, Mark and I had a quick conversation about what would that look like with some maybe more granularity or more responsiveness built into my recommendations to allow for a 35% capacity and a 60% capacity. So I added those two gray columns so that you would have that for discussion. I also wanted to point out kind of where we are today. So as of today, our last 7 days, we've had some pretty good days. And we are at a 7-day average of 3 cases a day over the last 7. And if you look at our percent positivity, we're at 4.2%. So as of today, we are able, if the county board and the facility board were to adopt the recommendation as it was written, or with additional specificity for 35 and 60% capacity, things would be open if the weather allowed. And so that's, is that a good overview, Supervisor Maves, or did you want to invite Mark to comment as well?
Is Mark on the screen? Are you? I don't see him on my. Mark, do you have any comments?
I am on the screen. We've been here the whole meeting, so.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I guess just to piggyback, what KT just talked about. First off, I just want to say thank you to her publicly here within this meeting for taking the time to listen to what the 35 and the 60% kind of meant to us, but still being cognizant that in relationship to the pandemic, that we aren't asking to be wildly open, and we're not asking for some crazy numbers. And so KT and I had a great conversation, and I really appreciate that the consideration to put those two gray columns, as we're calling them, the 35 and the 60%, in as part of the proposal that we had worked out Friday during our meeting. So it just helps us be able to, if we get in between that 25 and 50%, that's a big jump. And we just thought that, if we could fit something in the middle there, and we tried to stay on the lower half of the middle to be respectful to the caseload versus, public being out. And then same with between the 50 and the 75, we stayed at the 60% number to stay below that halfway point between those two numbers. And, for us to be, the reason we didn't ask for something between 75 and 100 is because at 75% capacity, financially, it is very doable for us to keep up with our bills and stuff at that level. And by adding the 35 and the 60 in between, I think still addresses the need to be careful with the health issue, okay? But it also allows us the chance to be able to financially do a little better so that we can stay on top of our bills and try to, ingest activity back into our, community and stuff like that, as far as economic impact and stuff like that. So that's kind of where we were coming from. And like KT said, we had a great conversation, and I don't know, I felt like we both felt good about it. So,
Okay, that's yeah, that was our goal here, is to everybody get on the same playing field. And like I said, I think it's just a great example of two parties working together to ensure that the racing season can go on, and yet the public health is being looked after too. So I think it's a win-win for Dunn County, and actually I'm very, very proud of what we got accomplished here. So this is a good thing. This is a good thing. So then what the resolution would be then is the adoption of and I'm going to call it the gray columned chart here, along with the other the papers that you sent out as far as what the association was going to do as far as for the protocols and all. Nothing changed on the other stuff. It was just the chart that's changed, correct?
yes, that's correct. Everything else.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So I guess the question I have for the board here then is, does the board have any questions as far as what's been talked about here this evening? Or what are your thoughts or wishes?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
couple of questions. First question, and I'm not real clear on based off of the case rate today, what would the capacity be on the stadium then?
Sure. So looking at the grid at 25% capacity, that was 366 people, in addition to the 250 or so that would be in the pit.
Okay, so that based off of the three that you mentioned per week, that would allow 25% capacity?
Per day.
Oh, 3 per day. Okay. Another question, these questions are probably now going to be directed more towards Mark. First question I have is, I know the racing community is a very, I can't think of the word for it now, but they're a very small, tight-knit community. And just because the Red Cedar Speedway wasn't open didn't necessarily mean that these racers didn't race last year. Is that correct? Mark, do you know that? Did we
Yes,
have
that is
people from our communities going to other tracks to race last year because ours wasn't open?
Correct. And fans going.
And, well, right, and fans. Based off of all the other tracks that were opened, were there any confirmed transmissions at those tracks that were brought back into the community that we know of?
So anecdotally,
No.
I
Go
can
ahead,
get
KT.
back to you on that, but anecdotally, we did have transmission in some of our large gatherings, especially very early in the season.
Okay. That's all I have for now.
Okay. Don, you have a question? You're muted, Don. You're still muted.
Yep.
There you
I
go.
got it. Okay. I've read this thing over two, three times, and I was just a procedure here. Now you're going to meet on Wednesday to determine how many people can attend the race on Friday. Is that correct? According to this. Now, how are you going to notify the patrons of the limit? Or because if you just let people come, maybe 1,000 people show up and you only can let in 360, that would cause you some problems, wouldn't it? It seems to me
Yeah,
that if you
definitely Go ahead, Don.
Well, I was just wondering.
Okay, I'll answer
you
that.
Go ahead and answer it first.
Yep. So that's definitely something that we thought about, is what the logistics of that's going to look like. And we're going to have to be very thorough in how we present this to start. You know, when we make an announcement, if there's an announcement to open to be made, that you know, we will share the information on how we're going to be able to operate when that announcement will be made. In the racing community, like Tim referenced, it is tight knit. So we get a lot of hits on Facebook every day. Is a very active tool for us. Our website is another place we'll go. We have media outlets that are involved with us as well. So we will get that, you know, information out to the public. We will use signage, you know, as people come to the event. Can I sit here and guarantee you that somebody is not going to drive up and be turned away? Nope, I can't guarantee you that. But, you know, we have pre-sale tickets that we're going to be able to do as well. So, yeah, we get that it's not, you know, it's not going to be the norm, but nothing really is right now. And this is a way for us to get back going and to provide the entertainment and you know, those kinds of things that go with the Red Cedar Speedway. So yeah, we have a plan to make sure we communicate.
I was just wondering, a lot of the, you know, groups that I work with and that sell tickets, they sell them exclusively online. And then when you hit your limit, you just close down the website. And then everybody knows that there are no more tickets. Wouldn't that be a practical way to do this?
Go ahead.
So Don, the situation we have with the solely online only is we do still have a fair amount of fans that do not have media outlet like capability. They don't use computers and stuff like that. They're not on the web or in the cloud or anything like that. So we have fans out there that we don't want to exclude just for the electronic capabilities or lack thereof. You know what I mean? So we still need to allow for hand-to-hand ticket sales for certain fans.
So how will those fans learn that no tickets are available if they don't have access to a computer or websites, etc.?
Correct. That great question, and that's where we will have signage posted, you know, as to, you know, what the number is total to begin the night and where we're at as the night moves along. And then when the tickets are sold out, then we'll lock the gate, and you know, we'll have to deal with those folks when they contact us. And I think what they'll have to learn is that they'll have to get there earlier, you know, or explore the opportunity to go through My Race Pass. So to clean this up, we do have the capabilities. People do have the capabilities to buy tickets online through a program called My Race Pass. It's used by our national sanctioning body, WSOTA, and it's a great service. So, you know, that is an option for people. So we have that stuff in place that people can use that option.
Just a couple other comments. I'm on the library board, and we were thinking about opening up the library again until the staff said that the last time we opened it up, they had a lot of difficulty with people refusing to wear masks. And they just walk right in, and these are library patrons, or they walk in with a mask and then take it off. And so, that made the staff feel very uncomfortable and unsafe. So we've decided to go back to curbside. So I think when you say wearing masks and stuff, I kind of take that with a grain of salt. I don't think you're going to be too successful there. It's just my comment.
I just, I appreciate that local school where face masks are required, and in my experience has been, it's been wonderful. It's been a very good. I coached basketball, and the kids had to wear them as athletes, and they did a great job. I really think there's a lot of people that are very serious about doing their part in doing what's necessary to, get this pandemic behind us. So, we will work our tails off. We have the protocols in the document with signage and with announcements through our public address announcer. We're going to make this, we publicize this through the various channels that we have, as well as radio. We have lots of good radio people that are behind us. We're going to talk, that's going to be a main part of the conversation, is that masks are required, and that I don't know, I've seen a great improvement in mask wearing personally. So again, I'm not trying to argue with you, Don, just wanted to share my experience with what I've witnessed. So thank you.
Mine's been a little different, so, but good luck.
Yeah, thank you, Don.
Okay, does anybody else have any other questions or comments, discussion on?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
I have a question for KT. This graph that you gave us, it's like 100% capacity to 25% capacity, and the higher the number, less case per day. So how did you come up with the 60 and the 35 when 100% is a lot lower than 60%?
I'm sorry, I'm not quite following. So 100% capacity would be all of the stands be full at 1,465 people. And so
yeah,
looking
but
at,
then it says case a day, it would be 0.65.
right.
But then so does that mean that there's more people getting sick?
So the general premise is that we want less people getting sick so that we can have more people in the stands, because we know that large gatherings, even with the protective factors of being outdoors, do run the risk of community spread. And so if we have less cases in Dunn County, that means that we have less opportunity to make a large number of those folks gathering sick. So it's an inverse relationship. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I would just kind of listen. Every time I look at the numbers seem to go down as the capacity goes up.
Yes, that's intentional.
Moderate. And then at the end, it says moderately high.
Right. And moderately high is a higher state burden than moderate. And you can see the guide kind of in the gray box down below. And that is for 2 weeks versus 1 week. So you'll have to have that to get a corresponding number. But you're absolutely right on the money. Supervisor Score, it is an inverse relationship. And the larger the crowd, the less cases we want to see to be comfortable with that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mike, what do you got?
So I think as we move forward, a lot of the elderly population is getting their vaccinations. This is an outdoor event. So our exposure to the ones that are really critically affected by the COVID is significantly being decreased. And it is a voluntary for the people to go to the races. So I certainly support letting them open back up. The economics of restraining them too much is they need the race this year if they want to stay open and in business, or they're going to lose their fan base. They're going to go to other races that are all open already. So I just encourage us not to handcuff them to the point where pretty quick they're not around.
Okay. Any other discussions or questions? Okay, if not, then based upon what the information we have before us, do I hear a motion to move this this resolution forward to the executive committee, utilizing the graph that has the gray columns, the latest one that was put out, along with the other things that the Red Cedar Racing was going to do? Do I have a motion to move this forward to the executive committee?
I'll make a motion to move it forward.
A motion's been made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded to move this forward. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Same sign. Motion is carried. We'll move this forward to the executive committee. Okay. Thank you. We're down to number 9. Our next meeting date will be March 24th. At this time, I will still, I'm looking at it to still be a Zoom, unless the numbers just drastically fall, but I don't think they will. So if they do, I'll certainly let you know, but I'm still planning on having a Zoom for the next meeting. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Should we read the public comment that was submitted earlier today from Jan Morlock?
Yeah, well, sure. We can, because it was sent out, it was printed, right?
Yes.
But go ahead and read it.
Okay. This is from Jan Morlock, a resident in Dunn County, 2714 Cherry Blossom Lane in Menominee. She said, to the members of Dunn County Board of Supervisors Facilities Committee, thank you very much for your leadership in considering this resolution. I'm writing in support of taking action as a county on this resolution. In order to address the ecological challenges ahead of us, I think it's going to require challenges large and small. I don't think there's going to be a technological fix for climate change, or at least we can't afford to wait and find out. The events of the last couple of weeks in Texas have reminded me that if we begin to practice at working on this locally, it will not only have the effect on longer term problems of too much carbon in the atmosphere, but it'll make us more resilient as a community, our neighborhoods, Menominee, Dunn County, for the responsibility to crises which may reach us in the future. There are things we can do right here and right now, and making this commitment and the plan to implement it will mobilize all of us with our personal and collective energy. Thank you to the members of the Facilities Committee. Jan Morlock, resident of Dunn County.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so once again, next meeting day will be March 24th at 6:30. If there, Don, you have a comment?
Yeah, just one short comment. We as elected officials tend to look more at putting out fires than looking ahead. And I thought this was kind of appropriate. One of my nieces sent me a Christmas card that contained a Greek proverb, which I think is appropriate here. A society, and I can put Dunn County in there, grows great when we plant trees in whose shade we know we will never sit.
Now you got me thinking, Don. You got me thinking. So that is really planning for the future. Yep. That's interesting. Does anybody? Yeah, Ron, you got a comment?
Yeah, I had a phone call from a lady named Novus Johnson, and she wanted to know if there was something that she could do to buy a article of something at the fairgrounds. There's this called a cattle ramp that's kind of by the, I don't know. It says she's never seen it and she'd like to buy it. Deb, would you know what I'm talking about?
Yep, it's the unloading chute that we actually had that made. It was all donated to the fair. When we used to have the rodeo, we needed to provide a loading chute instead of renting one. We had somebody make that, and then all the materials and the labor was all donated, and that's where it came from. We have not used it in a few years, but I don't know. About the time we sell it, then we'll need it. One of those type of things. So it was all donated. I know it didn't cost the county anything. It was completely, handmade.
Well, just tell her no then, right?
Probably not up to me, but I would guess that, it would be my opinion to say no. But
If you're comfortable saying no, Supervisor Score, that would probably be the easiest. If she's insistent, you can ask her to submit her request in writing again to Scott Nobbyfeld. He can coordinate with Deb on the response.
Yeah, okay, I will. Thank you.
Mike, did you have a comment?
No, I was just gonna say Tom had a comment. Thomas.
Mark Thomas had a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mark Thomas.
Okay, sure. Confuse an old guy here. Okay, so Mark, you have a comment?
More of a question, yeah. So the vote happened that you're gonna move it on to the executive committee. What does that mean for like timelines for us to know?
The executive committee will meet in March, 1 week before the county board. I think so that would be March 10. And everything that goes to the county board goes through the executive. Executive won't weigh in on it. They'll simply be aware of the recommendation of the facilities committee. The resolution itself will go to the full county board for adoption on March 17th.
So March 17th is when we'll find out, basically.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, if not, we are adjourned. Thank you and have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
All right.
Good night.
John, it switched you to host, so you're going to have to stop the live stream. You can just